Last week in Michigan politics, police in one local city fear they're having to justify their existence, as a proposal could eliminate their department. What that proposal is and what they're saying. Plus, another proposal in the state's second largest city would eliminate 15 of its voting precincts. Why the city clerk says the proposal was brought forward.
Adeline Hambley.
And it's a name you may have heard before in local Lakeshore politics after she went toe-to-toe with members of the county commission. But now she's receiving recognition for standing up for public health. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on Your Side Rundown. We're nearly 20 months out from the November 2026 election, and the races for state and federal offices are already packed. And this week, 3 candidates announced their campaigns for U.S. Senator or Governor of Michigan. First this week, former Republican U.S. Representative and former GOP U.S. Senate candidate Mike Rogers is entering the race to fill Senator Gary Peters' seat after Peters announced he would not seek another term. Then, former Michigan Attorney General Mike Cox, a Republican, announced his candidacy for governor. Current Governor Gretchen Whitmer is term limited and will leave the office after the 2026 election. And later in the week, former health official for Wayne County and Democrat Abdul El-Sayed announced his run for U.S. Senate as well. The race for governor now has at least 8 candidates vying for the office. The Senate race now has 2 major Democrats declared and 1 major Republican. On top of those already announced, one local congressman is teasing heavily at a potential run for Senate. Representative Bill Huizenga posted on social media this week he is considering running for Peters' seat in 2026. His post came just hours after Rogers officially announced his candidacy. Huizenga said he will continue to talk with voters and ask them who they believe is the best candidate for Republicans to nominate and elect to serve Michigan in the U.S. Senate. This week, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel joined several multi-state efforts supporting challenges to Trump administration policies. Nessel joined attorneys general in multiple states in filing 4 amicus briefs supporting lawsuits against administration policies. One of those briefs supports a challenge to the administration's deportation policy, while another supports a challenge to staffing cuts at the Social Security Administration. 2 of the briefs are in support of law firms whom the signing attorneys general say are being targeted for retaliation by the Trump administration. And this week, the race to replace Nessel, who is also term limited, began. Former U.S. Attorney Mark Totten announced his campaign for Michigan Attorney General, and the Democrat has the support of several leaders across the state from both parties. Totten held the job of U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan from 2022 until January of this year and was involved in many high-profile cases. He says his experience makes him ready for the position.
To be very clear, I'm not running against a person. I'm running to protect Michiganders, and whether that is taking on violent criminal gangs, whether it's taking on fraudsters, or whether it's taking on the federal government, including the president if need be, I'm ready and willing to stand in the way to protect Michiganders.
Totten, who lives in Kalamazoo, is the first major candidate to enter the 2026 race for Attorney General. Some of his endorsements include former Grand Rapids Mayor George Hardwell and current Kent County Sheriff Michelle LaJoy Young. Some West Michigan leaders are concerned a new framework for the federal budget could mean cuts to Medicaid. We look at what those leaders said at a roundtable discussing the future of the program.
It's all hands on deck.
All hands on deck, Michigan's Lieutenant Governor said, for a program that the state says covers roughly a quarter of its people.
The straight up assault on what people need to be healthy and to have a chance at being successful is incredibly dangerous.
Concern over the future of Medicaid funding, stemming from a framework for the federal budget passed through Congress last week. It's one that many congressional Republicans believe will pave the way for benefiting Americans in driving down the cost of living.
We also
need to achieve the maximum amount of savings for the American people, because that's what fiscal responsibility is. The Democrats are out right now trying to make hay out of the fact that we're going to gut Medicaid and all these other things. It's simply not true. We're going to protect the essential programs for everybody who's eligible to receive those.
The framework seeks to cut the federal deficit in many areas over a 10-year time frame. That includes seeking $880 billion in reductions from the Commerce and Energy Committee that has jurisdiction over Medicaid.
You cannot make those kind of cuts without cutting Medicaid.
So, at a roundtable in Grand Rapids Monday, leaders speaking to the impact locals could expect should cuts be made.
I think it would be almost immediately.
And when it comes to doctors, fewer patients would mean less work.
You would see almost immediately some pretty significant layoffs and reductions to the workforce.
Our most vulnerable populations are generally in more of our rural areas than many of our urban areas, and so we're very concerned about access to care for those who are living in rural Michigan.
And concerned about what it could mean for people in every corner of life, whether they realize it or not.
I think most folks probably underappreciate how close that need is to each of them. And so looking around and understanding who is it that's dependent on this care and what could be the potential impact on them.
Federal shakeups could have a lasting effect on farmers. Many research projects, including some at Michigan State University, are being eliminated, including some focused on improving food security.
Here at Michigan State University, we have this great tradition of the Paint the Rock.
For decades, the rock has been a symbol of expression for the campus community.
This is a great way to get a message out to the people in the community, to the students here on campus, what is happening with our research projects here at MSU.
And Thursday, it was the site of more.
Anything that, any major cuts that are going to impact this university, we all should be concerned about it.
Thursday morning, staff telling students about what they say are the impacts of cuts to USAID on the university's cornerstone ag research and its food security efforts. Over 20 programs at MSU, we were told, were cut midstream. One of those was bringing genetically modified potatoes engineered to resist late blight to other parts of the world, food that was first developed by Dr. Dave Douches.
We're taking the technology that we developed here at Michigan State University to create late blight resistant potatoes. Late blight is the disease that caused the Irish potato famine, and it's still a problem around the world.
Now, he said, that work has stopped. Work that many believe keeps America safe.
USAID was created in the 1960s in the era of the Cold War, and it's primarily so that we are out there making sure that we're making friends with countries so that the people that would wish us to do us harm are not making friends with those countries.
And it's not just the projects. For people like Jan Fierro, the cuts also cost them their work.
So currently I am still employed with the university, but it is there's a deadline that will be fast approaching. My position has always been tied to these programs, so it's something that I've always known that I've kind of taken as a risk.
The event, which we were told was informational but not political, connected with students like Jake Cardenas, who did a research project on USAID as a sophomore.
We don't want more pandemics. We don't want more epidemics. We don't want any more problems to come overseas. So just learning about what USAID does every day is so important.
When asked if he had known about the impacts being talked about at this event.
No, I had no idea how close to home it would have impact us. However, it is. It really is.
Also on the MSU campus Thursday, several unions held a joint rally called Stand Up for Higher Ed. It was part of a national effort by educators to stand up for their rights and the rights of their students. They are demanding that the federal government stop what they feel are its efforts to suppress academic freedom, manipulate curriculum, and target immigrants. The Trump administration has threatened to withhold funding to universities that refuse to follow executive directives. A rally in Grand Rapids Thursday heard calls to eliminate immigration detention centers and protests to plans to reopen a prison in Baldwin to be used by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. 13 on your side's Kiara Patterson was there.
Black, brown, Asian, white, all unite for immigrants' rights. Dozens gathered outside the ICE field office in Grand Rapids Thursday evening, signs raised high, calling for an end to mass immigration detention.
Every person in the United States, regardless of their status, should have due process. And they're not getting that. They're just being disappeared off the street as if this were a third world country.
The rally was part of the nationwide Communities Not Cages Day of Action, organized by National Activism Coalition, Detention Watch Network, co-led locally by No Detention Centers in Michigan.
People here are angry and they are concerned for the safety of our immigrant neighbors and friends.
The government will be afraid of the people.
Protesters were especially concerned about new plans to reopen North Lake Correctional Facility in Baldwin, a private prison that closed in 2022, but could soon be used to detain immigrants.
The reopening of the North Lake Prison in Baldwin as an ICE detention center would mean an increase in targeting immigrants in the region, increased violence against them, increased threats to their safety.
A multitude of us feel that prisons, that incarceration is inherently inhumane.
Protesters say detention harms families and puts entire communities at risk. They're calling for sanctuary policies and to stop immigration detention in Michigan.
Hey, we've got children, we've got a grandchild that we're very worried for their futures.
My grandparents and my mom are immigrants. I don't think that we should punish folks who are simply trying to find a better life.
What do we do?
Kiara Patterson, 13 on your side.
Some activists in Grand Haven this week were part of a growing movement across West Michigan. They expressed their dissatisfaction with what's happening in Washington in a way they say is also therapeutic. 13 on your side's Kiara Patterson also went to that event and shows us what they did.
Our rights are about to be taken away. Our voting rights are about to be eliminated.
Armed with pens and postcards, these West Michigan activists are directing their frustrations to the desks of Republican lawmakers.
We are sending pink slips to elected Michigan officials who we believe need to be put on notice. Those Republican elected officials that are not voting the way that we believe they need to be voting.
Attendees say Wednesday's pink slip postcard event, organized by West Michigan Women Resist, a chapter of the national activist group Indivisible, was equal parts protest and therapy.
There's days that some of us feel like we can't get our head, off the pillow or off the carpet, and it is therapeutic. It feels good to come here to meet with other women, other like-minded people.
Participants say they're targeting what they call harmful budget proposals, cuts to Medicaid and other essential programs, as well as eliminating tens of thousands of jobs in the federal government, while tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy are on the table.
This administration has done a lot of damage already. We want to make sure that everybody has their rights still intact and that nothing gets taken away from the working class people.
With Congress home for April recess, attendees like Don Hall say it's the perfect time to make their voices heard.
This is an example of one of our postcards. You can see that it says pink slip. History is watching you on the front. It's going to Jack Bergman. So Jack, check your mail. The reasons for your pink slip are not protecting our environment, telling every woman they are incapable of making their own decisions.
Organizers say the pink slips are symbolic, meant to let lawmakers know their jobs may be on the line come election season.
These elected officials that aren't doing their job like how we elected them to do, then they're going to get a pink slip from us, whether they like it or not.
Kiara Patterson, 13 on your side.
Some female West Michigan business owners worry the current economy could threaten the future of women-owned businesses. Many of them met with Congresswoman Skolton this week to talk about it. And 13 on your side's Alexis Dumergine was at the event to hear those concerns.
In a quiet room buzzing with resilience, a group of women business owners gathered, not just to talk shop, but to speak hard truths about survival. For them, today's economic challenges echo a deeper, longer fight. A fight for independence, recognition, and equality.
What, I can't even own a business now because of my gender?
The circumstances have changed, but the question is, by how much?
You heard those women down there. They're being threatened because they're a women-owned small business.
I don't know if I even want to talk about the fact that I'm a women-owned business. I don't know if I want to actively put it out there.
They point to changes in DEI efforts and raising tariffs as key issues, making it harder to keep their businesses going. Kim Bodie, a leader in the West Michigan small business community, decided it was time to gather women who often find themselves the only one in the room and connect them with someone who's been there too.
I'm Congresswoman Hillary Skolton, so proud to be the first woman in history to represent our community.
Congresswoman Skolton sat down with more than 10 women business owners, making space for voices that often go unheard.
I heard a lot of women saying today, I never knew how to get in touch with my representative in Congress before. I don't have enough resources to hire a paid lobbyist to go to Washington, D.C. And it was just such a joy to be able to tell them, you don't have to come to Washington. Washington comes to you.
Bodie spearheaded the event to create a space where women felt safe to share not just their challenges, but what's at stake.
I sit on a national advocacy board called Women Impacting Public Policy. We saw these executive orders that were coming, like, that were flying off the desk, of the president. We immediately saw the impact.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer and state education leaders are giving students an incentive to fill out their free application for federal student aid, known as FAFSA. This week, they announced a sweepstakes for first-time filers worth nearly $1 million. The Ticket to Tuition FAFSA sweepstakes, as it's called, will award 10 prizes worth $50,000 each and 40 others worth $10,000. To enter, fill out the FAFSA form and then text the word cash to the number on your screen by May 16th. Whitmer says the sweepstakes are part of her efforts to lower the cost of higher education. Coming up, a West Michigan Police Department is being asked to justify its existence, they feel, by the City Council. What is causing the possible elimination of the department? Plus, Grand Rapids City Commissioners are set to vote on reducing the number of voting precincts in the city. Why the city clerk says he brought the proposal to the table. Voters in Grand Rapids could see 15 of their 74 voting precincts eliminated for the next election day. But according to the Grand Rapids city clerk, the proposal he brought to the city isn't to take away options for voting. Rather, it's due to expanded access. According to city clerk Joe Hondorp, around 57,000 people voted during early voting and absentee in the November general election last year. In-person voting on election day brought in around 44,000 people. Hondorp says by closing some precincts, they'll be able to reallocate the costs of election sites to other resources like manpower.
There are some allocation of costs that would go from the election day into running early voting sites, because that's 9 days of early voting of election workers. Not as many sites, but you have election workers and you have space open and other equipment. So it'll be moving the cost from one spot to another.
Next, the City Commission will have to go through a second reading of the proposal. If it eventually passes, it'll take 30 days for it to take effect. As for what precincts will be closing, 3 would close in the first ward, 5 in the second, and 7 in the third. If there are any changes to your precinct, should this go through, you will be contacted by the City of Grand Rapids, but Hondorp says you should always check before you vote to see if your precinct has changed. Leaders in the city of Allegan say they are in a tough spot with the budget. Millions of dollars are needed over the next decade to help with infrastructure improvements. 13 on your side's Callie Lichter has more on a proposal that would eliminate the city's police force to get the money.
The city of Allegan may soon be without a police department as a way to help pay for infrastructure projects in the city. The idea was discussed at the City Council budget meeting last week and then publicly discussed at the City Council meeting Monday.
The city of Allegan is facing budget challenges. We are facing rising costs from everything from paving roads and managing our water system to paying for employee health benefits and maintaining our parks.
At the meeting, City Manager Joel Dye says to complete the necessary projects, the city would need an average of $500,000 a year over the next 5 years, with more money after that. He says they considered a number of options to help their current budget, including using the Allegan County Sheriff for police services.
Is an approach that will allow us to save money while maintaining the high level of public safety our residents have come to know and expect.
Dye says other communities such as Hudsonville and Saugatuck have already done things similar to this with success. But Allegan Police Chief Jay Gibson, who told 13 on Your Side he didn't know about the proposal until after the budget meeting took place, says it's hard to put a price tag on their service.
And I don't know how to quantify what we do on a relationship level, a community level, our service that we provide. How do I quantify that in a number?
And is skeptical on how much money they'd really be saving by dismantling the police force.
I'd like us to look at those numbers more closely too on, is it really $500,000 that would be saving? And is the juice worth that squeeze?
Dye says this is all still a discussion, and they plan on listening to community input before decisions are made. Gibson told 13 on Your Side he's confident the community will support the department.
An update now to a story we first started following in February, a vape ban in Muskegon. The new rules were adopted at a commission meeting last week. They ban smoking and vaping within 100 feet of playgrounds and pavilions in parks. The park rules previously banned smoking, but earlier this year, the Parks and Rec Committee advised the commission to add vaping to the rules. That proposal failed to pass in February. Only one commissioner voted against the amended rule.
I suggested at that time that a designated area be provided in the park where if we allow smoking and vaping in that area, this way they would be away from the rest of the citizens, and because people are going to smoke. Just like we have no alcohol consumption in here, well, you're going to see some alcohol consumption going on in that park.
The other commissioners said they felt the 100 feet rule is a fair compromise, allowing people to smoke in parks away from people congregating. This rule is not enforceable by police. It will have to be written in the city ordinance for that to happen. The Parks and Recreation Department's next step will be putting together a public information campaign. Kentwood's new community development director says the city is actively looking for ways to deal with the ongoing housing crisis. Lisa Golder, a longtime city employee, was recently appointed to that position. She says right now most of the vacant land in the city is made up of 2 existing farms. One is already under development and includes new housing. The other farm is for sale on Patterson Avenue. With limited space for new housing, Golder says redevelopment is an important part of the solution.
A couple years back, we took the Division Avenue corridor and rezoned it so that residential was allowed in that corridor, whereas before it was only for commercial, and it's kind of an aging commercial corridor. And so with housing allowed there, we think that with the general interest in housing that we might get more housing development, which will also be able to make use of the Silver Line bus service.
Golder says in the last year, the city has approved the development of 400 additional housing units, which includes single-family homes, condos, and apartments. Kentwood is the 3rd largest city in Greater Grand Rapids. A new policy by the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, deemed controversial by some, will target Canada geese this summer. In place of a relocation policy, what the state is doing as a last resort. That's next. County clerks in West Michigan are busy helping people with the documents they need to get a real ID before the May 7th deadline. Starting then, you'll need a real ID to fly or to get into some federal buildings. A real ID is a driver's license or state ID with a gold sticker on it. If you don't have one, you'll need a certain document to get one. For most people, that's a birth certificate, but it could also be a passport or green card.
One thing I want to flag, though, for folks that affects a lot of people is if your name has changed in any way from the time you first receive your birth certificate, you need to have proof of that legal name change. A lot of folks, that looks like a marriage license, right? Because marriage licenses allow folks to legally change their last name. For other folks, it's an adoption process or adoption proceeding where there needs to be some sort of documentation. Or maybe it's just a legal name change that you've gone to the court and said, I want to change my name.
Again, the Real ID deadline is May 7th. As summer approaches, the state is preparing in specific scenarios to cut down on the Canada goose population using carbon dioxide euthanasia. 13 on your side's Kiara Patterson spoke with the Department of Natural Resources about the initiative, what they call a last resort.
100 geese on a site is a lot of geese, so it's just a numbers issue.
They flock to our lakes, our parks, and our homes.
They love lush grass, especially, nice lush lawns in close proximity to ponds or waters.
But this summer, some of Michigan's Canada geese could face a much different fate. Instead of being relocated, they could be rounded up and euthanized with carbon dioxide.
The capture and euthanasia program is a new part of our resident Canada goose management program. Our population goals are between 175,000 to 225,000 statewide. We've been over that upper limit or upper population goal of 225,000 for most of the last decade, and we have peaked in some years at 300,000 geese.
While controversial for some, Caitlin Barnes from the Department of Natural Resources says it's a last resort effort.
Our goal is to manage the population through hunting. We're not looking for sites with a lot of geese. They're coming to us because they've exhausted all other options and they need an alternative.
In June, the state will start capturing and euthanizing geese at approved sites, targeting birds during their flightless molting period.
Wildlife Services will then, when we get into that period, will do a site visit to make sure they do meet that criteria, that they actually have that many birds on site. And if they do, that is who will then conduct the capture and euthanasia on site.
She says sites approved for the program will have to cover the cost of euthanasia themselves, and it could be costly.
It's still going to be a lot more money than, some of these other alternatives that we're encouraging sites to try before we get to this point.
The Ottawa County Health Officer, who faced off with members of the County Commission over things including her department's budget and an effort to move her to an interim place in the post, is now being recognized for her efforts in public health. We spoke with her one-on-one this week about the experience that led to her award and what she's saying now. You might remember the name Adeline Hambley, Ottawa County's public health officer who became a big figure in local politics in recent years. She survived an effort from conservative members of the County Commission to demote her to an interim status, as well as a termination hearing. Now she's being recognized for commitment to defending public health.
Adeline Hambley.
It's a name West Michigan has heard a lot in the last few years.
Health officer for Ottawa County Department of Public Health.
A health officer who went to court to defend her place in the post and to the boardroom to defend against potential changes to her budget she feared at the time could close her department.
A failure to fund at a level that the state requires could result in not receiving any state funds as well. If that happens, then we're talking the county health department would close its doors.
A legal fight lasting over a year with a new county commission majority in 2023 who sought to demote her at their first meeting. Hambley even faced a termination hearing for allegations of incompetence, misconduct, and neglect of duty. Now, a different story.
I was really touched that folks felt compelled to nominate me.
Hambley being recognized for her efforts, receiving the Jean Chabot Health Policy Champion Award from the Michigan Public Health Week Partnership.
They award that for upholding or promoting or moving forward the practice of public health in the state of Michigan. I feel like a recognition beyond our borders, I guess, outside of just our community. And I think that's really valuable.
Now, the name Adeline Hambley means something to everyone in this county. A lot of people say protected public health.
Yeah.
Other people do not see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
How does that impact you personally, just as a person, to be that kind of figure that you never expected? You probably never expected to be before.
I did not. I can't say as I ever expected it. That's very accurate. But I can say, you have to, I think, going through something like this, try to find the positives where you can.
Changing public perception of what a government employee is and making the public aware of what public health is and does is something she said she is grateful for.
Our work has to protect the most vulnerable in the population. And sometimes that means that we have to take action that doesn't please everybody, but we do so that everyone can be protected.
Unease over how power can impact her staff's work, she signaled, does remain. But the support of the community over the years played a role. If it hadn't,
I wouldn't be in this position and where we are.
And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com. We'll see you next week.